just made sure that you can build up to that crescendo, because after that, interest is inevitably going to wane. So, the key thing is to get as much coverage on the day. You will have, again, I'm talking about Apple specifically in this case, you will have redemption codes. Send all the journalists that redemption codes. Make sure that it's covered very, very widely at the point of release. And for the foreign press, I didn't know who to contact. I asked our beta testers from around the world, who the major sites were. And they were absolutely brilliant. They came back and they told me the major sites were. So I just sent these guys emails. It really is DIY marketing. But it works. And it works because these things change so rapidly that actually a database from a year ago is probably not relevant. What's happening at the moment absolutely is. And then on the day of release, we blitzed the social networks, the Facebooks. We didn't pretend to be fans. I know a lot of people do, but I think that people just know when this is, when they're being fooled. So basically, we came on as Revolution and said, look, we're really excited, check this out. And the key thing also is to try and make the launch event, an event, so that actually people are genuinely interested. We managed on Broken Sword to convince the Apple Store in Regent Street to run an event, which was just great because we could present the game, we could invite our fans along, we had members of the press, and there was just a real buzz, and that buzz translated to the fans, it translated to the press. Afterwards, we had the comics, so Dave Gibbons and the Revolution team were signing comics. And then afterwards, Screen Yorkshire very kindly organised a party nearby. It was an event. It meant something. And ultimately, Broken Sword is based on a game that's 15 years old. It could easily have been dismissed as actually, this is just a rehash, which it most certainly wasn't. But it was absolutely vital that we gave, the credibility that this was actually something special. Post-launch, check the reviews, go to all the major websites, and if they haven't covered the games, send them a code, or for the American ones, what you do is you just go in and you just, the little boxes, you enter the code and they don't promise you anything whatsoever, and inevitably they come back and say, well, actually, we can review it a bit quicker if you send us like $100. Whether you choose to do that or not is up to you. I have to say I didn't, and we seem to get pretty good coverage anyway. And then the price. And the price is so crucial. And there's so much disagreement on what should actually happen. From our perspective, as I said, we started at £4, we went down to £3. Do we go down to £1 to bring the app right up the charts where it'll be seen and then we can put the price up again? I think for some games that's absolutely appropriate. Personally, for Broken Sword, I don't think it is, because once we're out of the top 20, the people who are buying our games are the people that have been recommended. And I don't think that those people are going to be nearly as price sensitive. Obviously, another another element that's possible is the Lite, the free version that you can give away. We found with Beneath the Steel Sky that actually we got no take-up on the free version whatsoever, and we're still selling more of the paid-for version than the free app. I just don't quite understand why. This is definitely a black art. It's not a science at all. But the results were that we went on to sell about 100,000 units in the first 6 weeks. It got to number 1 in France and Germany, and it got pretty high in the UK as well. I really should know what number. I can't remember. We were very pleased. The only thing that didn't go quite so well was that the US sales matched the UK, which was fantastic. But potentially, most people talk about the fact that the US should be 7, 8, 9 times the UK. So clearly we have a large market that, we're not exploiting over there. And as these guys were saying, you have a second chance, and our second chance will be the free version, and we can market it more effectively, or we will try to market it more effectively in the US. But ultimately what we have is a solid business model that's worked, and it's as an independent developer, it's been very, very tough. I'm sure everybody in this room who is a developer would agree with that. We now have the opportunity to take our own destiny into our own hands, and that's a great position to be in. So, in conclusion, when we embarked on the self-publishing route, we really knew nothing about the iPhone landscape. And it really was very daunting. And I'd imagine that people who are planning to publish their own games are probably in that position now. So if I was to name three things that I'd really focus on, I mean, top has to be the relationship with Apple. I keep saying this, but if they feature it, then it gets noticed. Secondly, an absolutely clear marketing plan, which defines what your message is, what you want to do, when you want to do it, and then stick to it. And thirdly, then seek advice. I'm very grateful, as I was saying earlier, from the advice that Paul was very happy and very generously gave me, indeed Martin Brown as well. People who have done it before are generally very happy to give you information, give you help. And that's what then allows us to do amazing things, and allows us as a small company to do things that previously huge companies did. And the final thing that we talked about last night was endurance. The great thing is that when a publisher publishes a game, they forget about it as soon as it's out. Whereas it's your game. If you have the opportunity to do so, keep looking at it. If it isn't working in certain areas, how do you tweak it? What do you do? And there's plenty of opportunity to exploit it wider, to put it onto other formats. Excuse me. To exploit it on other formats. And I think that as an IP holder, we will do things in a much more effective way, because ultimately, you can license it. If it's PC, you can license it onto a magazine in Poland for $10,000. $10,000 isn't even worth thinking about for a publisher, but for a small developer, that's a significant amount of money. It is worth following up. So there are plenty of opportunities to exploit your IP in a way that others just wouldn't do, because they'd be more interested in what was coming up behind it. So what we have is about 10 minutes for questions. So I'm going to ask the first question from these guys to follow up. So if you can please think of some questions, that would be fantastic. So otherwise I'll be very embarrassed if nobody comes up with any questions. So thank you. Ooh. So I'll kick off first, and if people could prepare a question. I want to ask both of you, relationship with the press, how you build it, how you maintain it, and what tips you would give to people.
Okay, I suppose for us, a year and a half ago, we had no relationship with the press. We had no relationship with our end users, our customers, the game players at all. So that's something we've had to really learn and to build over that period. I think, as you said earlier, Charles, it really is just a case of trolling the internet. It's speaking to the players, finding out where they're going, what sites are interesting them, where they're getting their information from, and then going to those sites and building relationships. I would say that nothing beats a one-to-one. So, getting a couple of the key sites in the US and the UK, identifying them and saying, okay, for us in mobile, it's Pocket Gamer, it's Touch Arcade. These are the guys that we get in front of. It's going to conferences, it's getting next to these guys, buying them a beer, building a relationship face-to-face. I don't think anything can beat that relationship. It's then inviting them up to the studio, making them feel a part of the game development process. And I think that's something we have done very well, is actually make the journalists feel that they're contributing to the design and development of the game. Then inherently they have ownership on it, which is really great. But it's hard work. I think it's just a lot of out there, knocking doors, cold selling.
Part of it presumably is the fact that people love talking to you directly rather than through a PR department. So they know that they can ask a question and they'll get a direct answer rather than the company line.
I think, as you said, going on to sites and saying, hey, we're Revolution, we're Tag, we're making the game, we're going to talk to you direct, is awesome. I think the fans really appreciate that. You don't have to spend a huge amount of time doing that, and obviously now with social networking, with things like Twitter, the tools are there to be able to communicate with your fans, with the press, on an hourly basis, and actually it doesn't take any effort whatsoever. So I think that's something that more